between the two of them.
The inside of Coates.
Parker gets too heavily involved.
And that's Whitehead and Coates.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome along to the VRRC Touring Car Championship European Tour. We're getting into the final leg of our championship battle, and it's time for the second of our 40-minute mini endurance races. We held one at the iconic Monza circuit in Italy a month or so ago, and now we're at the equally iconic Francorchamps circuit in Belgium for another 40-minute pit stop race that could prove absolutely crucial in the championship race. Andy McEwan, as always, joined by Jack Oliphant here in the commentary box. And Jack, there's something special about Spa. Doesn't matter whether it's the real thing or the sim version. It's always a special place to go racing, and I can't think of anywhere better to have our second 40-minute pit stop race. The one at Monza, I know you couldn't join us for, but trust me, it was good, and I expect the one today to be even better.
Yeah, exactly. I was very much looking forward to the 40-minute races because, of course, that is a new format to VRRC, especially since I've been joining in the commentary booth. So, I'm very sad that I couldn't be at Monza, but I'm excited for tonight. You can actually see the full schedule and full calendar on your screen at the moment. It actually started, obviously, at Barcelona, Paul Ricard, then Monza, as previously mentioned, Red Bull Ring, Hockenheimring, at Spa tonight, Bikaniki next week, and obviously Silverstone to finish off our European tour with the touring cars, obviously with the hybrid as well. Previous round, what happened at the Hockenheimring then? Well, Nicky Taylor took the most amount of points. Elliot Dalton Ayres was second after a really strong couple of rounds for him. And Josh Martin, who I think, won the driver of the round, although I'm probably going to get corrected in that in a little minute. But it was some really impressive racing all round. A little bit too much contact from certain areas, but still really, really impressive driving. And hopefully they'll all have a bit of a sensible head on and they'll be able to crack on with the endurance racing tonight here at Spa.
Hopefully, yes. Although if Monza was anything to go by, they do seem to forget the endurance element of it. It was certainly very frenetic right from the get-go at Monza, and I expect Spa with its long straights and big braking zones to produce lots of overtaking as well. But yeah, Nicky Taylor, really strong last week at Hockenheim. 2 second-place finishes, didn't win a race. The wins instead went to Kyle Felvers and to Elliot Dalton-Ayres. So Dalton-Ayres also putting together a good end to the night, but Nicky Taylor by far was the most consistent. And that means that he arrives here at Spa as the championship leader. Nicky Taylor showing us 1 point up Joel Lask. That's actually a 6-point advantage because of something I won't get into because it's quite complicated. But anyway, Joel Lask wasn't racing with us at Hockenheim, so that kind of becomes his drop score by default. So Joel Lask 6 points actually off the championship lead, but it's still very close with Eric Axelsen, I should say, only 3 points further behind him in third. Kyle Felvers is right up there in fourth. Elliot Dalton-Ayres, one to watch, I think, the third of the HFT racing drivers in points, but he's just sort of slowly creeping into contention with that really strong run last time at Hockenheim, as we said, and he's into the top 5 in points now, just ahead of Josh Martin, Andy Carroll, Rich Hayden, Paul Zanatachi, the newcomer to the VRRC, Jens Verhoeven, rounding out the top 10. So that is how the front of the championship standings look. And as you can see, we've had quite a few drivers who have raced with us this week, this season, I should say. 18 of them scoring points so far. And we may even have 1 or 2 others coming in towards the end of the season. But Jack, at the top, it is very, very tight. Just how we like it.
It absolutely is, yeah. And really, it's sort of double points here on offer. It's a bit awkward to say double points. It's still the same amount of points that you would win for an entire round of sprint racing, say last week at Hockenheim, but you only have to win 1 race. You don't have to win 2 to gain all those maximum points. So it's going to be, again, a bit of an interesting strategy. Fastest lap is still applicable, so you still get 3 points for that. So you might see the likes of Joel Lask really trying to catch up to Nicky Taylor by using those fast lap or pole position points, and that might sort of bridge the gap of the points that he lost due to the fact that obviously his brother was racing. And this is what they're racing for, of course. First place, second place, and third place all come with a delightful trophy that you can put on your trophy cabinets. This might be the first one that they actually get for their brand new trophy cabinet. They might have to build one for it. It's a great prize, and hopefully, as I said, it's a bit of a conversation starter when people walk through the door. And any driver of the round obviously gets a little medal as well shipped over to them.
They do indeed, and we will wait to see who the lucky recipient of that prize is at the end of the night. Right then, we've spoken already a little bit about the circuit here at Spa. Let's take a closer look at it then with our hot lap.
So across the finish line here for the start of round 6 at Spa for Virtual Reality Racing Club's Touring Car Championship. Into turn 1, you can actually use first gear to get the car slowed down, but then short shift into second, get that rotation that allows you to get a better drive on the exit all the way down to the infamous Eau Rouge set of corners. A lot of pre-preparation has to be done here into 6th, get across the curb nice and early to open up Eau Rouge and make it as easy as possible to keep it completely flat. Once the tyres wear, this could be one of them sectors that is absolutely crucial for momentum, otherwise overtakes are going to be even easier down this very long straight down towards turn 5. Now set this up by braking at the start of the curb and down to 3rd gear, and you're aiming for your left wheels on the red and yellow curbing through that chicane, and then a short shift into 4th for the direction change through turn 7, down to probably for me one of the more difficult corners. You're going to brake and sharp V at 3rd gear, let the car run out a little bit, then tighten itself back in, and it just allows you to get better traction on the exit. Turn 9, got no name, but I tell you what, another tricky corner. A lot about commitment on the way into the corner and all about momentum. Turn 10, 5th gear, braking earlier than you anticipate to mean you can get that apex, but make sure you keep your eyes up and looking through the corner to pick that throttle up, and once you commit to throttle, you don't want to let off, otherwise this is yet again another strong overtaking opportunity. Turn 12 and 13, third gear, holding it reasonably tight through the right just to open up the left-hander here, shifting to fourth on the way out, then down to third, keeping your eyes up yet again, looking for when that curb on the outside opens up for you to drive onto it, meaning that you can stay far enough left to keep that right-hander completely flat onto the next, what I would class as back straight. Even though it's got corners, it's completely flat and a lot of time for good overtakes here. Probably wouldn't recommend doing an overtake before this left-hander, but a lot of time to get in that slipstream and set it up going towards this last chicane. Really difficult, not really a definite braking point here, but just a lot of practice on this track will help dial that in. Then down to first yet again, short shift to second, make sure you get a nice clean run to the finish line. Make sure you tune in on Wednesday night on VRRC's YouTube, give this video a like and subscribe.
A beautiful tour around the Belgian countryside there, and as you can see, the drivers starting to do the same thing themselves now during our 15-minute qualifying session. We're already nearly 5 minutes into that, so drivers now just starting some significant flying laps, but a long lap this, Jack, so they're going to be limited on the amount of tours they're able to do.
Yeah, well, 15 minutes sounds like a long time, and it is weird to think that we've been away from qualifying for 5 odd minutes, but realistically, that is only basically an outlap. It's mad, isn't it? You're absolutely right. They'll be just starting to put in maybe one flying lap, some drivers, but this will probably be their first flying lap for a lot. Nicky Taylor's actually on an outlap, so this is their warm-up sort of thing. So, yeah, no, going to be interesting in how they attack this, whether they just carry on, put one lap in, and just carry on, put 3 or 4 in, as many as they can, or whether they come in after one lap, put some new tyres on, which means they have to do an entire in-lap and an entire out-lap, which is about 5 minutes, 6 minutes potentially. Obviously, put new tyres on, then you really are running the risk of running out of time to even set another flying lap. It's a bit of a minefield. I think I would just be going out and just putting in as many sort of corners together as humanly possible. Reece Bell has unfortunately flown into a tyre wall, I'm guessing, because his front end looks a bit damaged.
Yeah, that's not how Cupra designed the front of this TCR car, so he's definitely had an excursion into the Spa scenery somewhere, but he will complete this lap and then have another crack at it with hopefully a repaired car very shortly. Nicky Taylor straight back into the pit lane, so he went out of the pits, as you said, Jack, on an outlap, and then dives straight back in. At the moment, though, it is the qualifying king, Eric Axelsen, who is on provisional pole position. I keep calling him the qualifying king. He actually hasn't been on pole position since the second round at Paul Ricard, but he did dominate the first 2 qualifying sessions of the season. And Jack, he is right in there. He's only 9 points off the top of the championship, and he's been doing that in a typical Eric Axelsen way. Only the 1 race win, but as yet has not finished out of the top 10 all season long.
Well, he's sort of flying under the radar. We've spoken to Eric more this season than we have done in any previous seasons with VRRC since he's joined, which, to be fair, was probably only about 2 or 3 championships ago. But he's doing it under the radar. He knows exactly what he needs to do, and he's quite calm and collected when we do have a chat with him. So, yeah, he's doing everything right. And to be honest, I think, for me, Eric is one of those drivers that actually suits the endurance a little bit more than maybe the sprints. We often say that maybe his sort of biggest, not failing, or problem necessarily, but in sprint racing, he doesn't seem as aggressive as a lot of the other drivers. And in, obviously, this 40-minute endurance race, he can wait and he can afford to let other people make mistakes and then take advantage of it. He is a very quick driver. He's a very consistent driver. I'm sure he'll enjoy it here tonight in Spa.
Yeah, he finished 4th at Monza in our previous mini-endurance race. That was a race won by Jordan Brennan on his 1 and only appearance in the championship. But 2nd place was Rich Hayden, and 3rd place, Elliot Daltonaire. So actually, we did see some interesting names getting towards the sharp end at Monza, and I wonder whether we'll see another bit of a, shuffle of the order here. That is quite easy to do there, hitting that barrier on the way into the Spa pit lane. Joel Lask very nearly repeating a mistake I made more times than I'd care to admit at Spa. He bails for the pit lane, as indeed have most of the field for a mid-session tyre change. So it looks like, Jack, they've put in 1, maybe 2 flying laps and then decided to come in and change tyres. The majority of them going out on the soft tyres, but there are a couple, Mark Hughes, Paul Laramie and Kenny Press actually, all out there on the medium tyre. Remember, there are 3 tyre compounds available through qualifying and the race, and that will be a big talking point when we get into the 40-minute race in about 10 minutes' time.
Yeah, so those on the mediums at the moment, we can assume are just going out there and putting laps in, I suppose. If they're on soft tyres, you know that that's going to fall off a cliff pretty quickly, and those drivers will probably be coming in for the pits, like we've seen quite a lot. And we just saw Joel Lask have a little bit of an incident. You mentioned it there, going into the pit lane and everything like that. Fun fact, Spa is one of the few places I've been and raced, and I haven't actually crashed at it. I can't believe it. Most of these series that we go to, whenever I've been to a track and say, oh, I've crashed there. Oh, I crashed on that corner. Oh, you've commentated on me crashing at that particular corner, Andy. But Spa, I managed to keep it clean. We only did race for about 3 laps because the GT5s crashed far too often. But still, I'm holding it.
Tell you what though, if ever there were a track to go at and not crash, then I'd say Spa is up there, because it's not usually a small one, is it? So yeah, well done, Jack. There we go, gold star to Jack Oliphant, who will now be petitioning for every race when he does return to the cockpit to be held in Belgium. On board with Nicky Taylor then, heading over the top of Radillon there, onto the Kemmel Straight. This slow incline towards the highest point of the circuit. Great, just at the start of that curb on the left, down a couple of gears, down into that, looks like 3rd on the way in, just trying to control that wheel spin. Front wheel drive touring cars, of course. No hybrid available during qualifying. That will be available during the race though. 15 uses of the hybrid, or push to pass as a few of them have been calling it. But in qualifying, it's just you, the pedals, wheel, the track, and what a track it is. I will never tire, Jack, of riding on board around this place. It's such a flowing, high-speed circuit, technically very demanding, but when you get it right, there are not many places more satisfying.
No, and actually we're coming up to one of the corners, in my opinion, that is underrated. Poo on and poo out, I like to call it. But it's so satisfying when you get that hooked up and you can get on the power really early on the exit of the first apex, and then just keep the momentum up through the second apex. Never too keen on these particular. I just can never find the acceleration point. And in a front-wheel drive car, you'd probably know better than me, Andy, having raced in the TCRs on a Thursday in the sim. You're constantly having to be so patient to be able to actually get back on the power there before wheel spinning and running wide, because that can ruin basically all of your hard work over the last minute and a half.
Yeah, the corners around somewhere like Spa, in particular, these long, sweeping, sort of medium to high-speed corners, are kind of the hardest, because if you get it wrong on the way in, you can't recover from that in a front-wheel drive car. If you're driving a rear-wheel drive GT or sports car or something, and you carry a bit too much speed in, you can gas it up and get the back end sliding around, whereas with a front-wheel drive touring car, such as these ones, yeah, if you carry too much speed into a corner like Puhan or Campus, or even through the Les Combes section as well, then that's kind of it. You're going to ruin your run through there, and there's not a lot you can do to fix it once you're into the corner. Nicky Taylor about to fix his qualifying session a little bit though, because he finally gets a lap in that's good enough for the outside of row number 2. Not a lot of action over the last minute or so as people are back out on their new set of tyres, getting the outlap done, and now they're starting to build up the speed. Reece Bell at the moment at the back, of course, he had to come in to get repairs made to his car, and he's about to come through and log his first representative lap. Reece Bell is not really 20 seconds off Eric Axelson's pace. We know that to be the case. Comes through the chicane, no longer called the bus stop, unfortunately. It is now just the rather bland name of the chicane, but a 1:27.1 is the lap time he's aiming for, and a 29.4 is the best he can do to just about, Jack, break into the top 10.
Yeah, it's amazing, actually. I mean, you just mentioned it there, that we haven't had that many lap times even put in. A lot of these drivers, pretty much all of them actually, will have spent longer on an in or an out lap, a lap that doesn't matter, basically, than they have actually getting out there and putting fast laps in. So it is really crucial, that ability to turn your time on, basically, that ability to switch the tyres on, get yourself into the zone, and then just be able to bash out the fastest lap you've ever done is absolutely crucial at a long track like Spa, like Monza, or anywhere like that, especially in such a short qualifying time. So really impressive that Axelson is 2.5 tenths up the road. Josh Martin is a driver that Dave Marshall actually pointed out to us before we went live as well. He is one of those drivers that could make some big damage here in the championship if the likes of Joel Lask who is currently in 9th place, doesn't have a particularly good day. Nicky Taylor, who's currently in 4th, but 0.6 of a second down on pole position. That could change, obviously. If those two drivers don't have a particularly enjoyable night, Josh Martin could really bump himself up and almost cracking into the top 5.
Yeah, he's just over 30 points off the championship lead at the moment, so he would need to put in a really good end to the season. There are 5 races to go, and he seems to be getting faster all the time. Now, change there for 2nd place. Andy Carroll jumping onto the front row. Andy Carroll's qualifying efforts have been getting better and better as the season's gone on, but he's yet to start from the front row after a qualifying session anyway. I think he's had a reverse grid front row, but certainly not a race 1 front row, so that's a good effort from him to jump ahead of Josh Martin. Also had an improvement there for Jens Verhoeven as well, into 5th place. Jens Verhoeven, one of the quicker of the HFT racing drivers so far tonight. Rich Hayden jumped into 7th as well, and we're following Mark Hughes now as he heads up towards Blanchimont, this really tricky left-hander. There's lots of the runoff area on the way in to open out the entry. Don't hit that curve on the inside, that will not end well, and that looked pretty much perfect there for Mark Hughes. Now you've got to get your braking point into the chicane. Car squirming around under braking, one of the best overtaking opportunities on the circuit as well. And the Motorsport driver hooks up the second apex, comes towards the line, and can he break into that top 10? Then if he does, he will demote Reese Bell out of the top 10, but it doesn't happen. It's an improvement in time, but not position, so Mark Hughes stays 11th with time for one more lap.
I'm looking forward to Blanchimont as a corner, actually, and that overtaking opportunity. Oh, bit of a bump of the wall there, and that overtaking opportunity into the chicane. Because, mainly, I can expect a few drivers to be using their hybrid system before they get to Blanchimont to try and pull alongside and maybe even get fully ahead. That means you'll be arriving at the corner, quite a few miles an hour. I'm not entirely sure on the specifics, but quite a few miles an hour quicker than you normally would in practice or in qualifying. That might catch a few drivers out, and you just said don't touch the curb on the inside. Well, if you turn in a little bit earlier and you're sort of side by side with someone and you're going quicker, all of a sudden those little fine margins can be really hard to actually execute. And if you do touch that and you're going quicker, we could end up with a big crash or people missing their braking zones and things like that. So again, Blanchimont sort of looks like it could be fairly simple when you were just watching it on these cameras, but trust me, there's an awful lot that goes into it. And when we start adding the hybrid system in, it could cause havoc.
Yeah, absolutely. A very challenging corner and an important one when we get into the races. Paul Zanatachi here running 6th in the session at the moment. That would not actually be his best result in qualifying, because he qualified 4th a week ago at Hockenheim. Just behind him, though, Josh Martin is absolutely flying and could be about to challenge for pole position. Zanatachi goes 4th. What can Josh Martin do? No, stays in 3rd. The last corner, he went wide, Dave Marshall tells us, so Josh Martin does not improve, but Paul Zanatachi does, and that will, if he stays there, now his season's best qualifying effort. Zanatachi, another who really seems to be wrapping his head around these front-wheel drive touring cars as the season goes on. Now, Elliot Dalton-Ayres could do with jumping up here from 8th on the grid, but he doesn't. Stays in 8th place. Perhaps had the best of those soft tyres by the time he got to the end of the session. Eric Axelson's still circulating, but he looks as though he will stay on pole position, because those most likely to pip him, Jack, have all seen the checkered flag without improving.
Yeah, Nicky Taylor's about to cross the line, but hasn't set a fast sector at all, so it's really damaging for him, the fact that Zanatachi got up. Because, of course, that means that Nicky is now on the 3rd row and not the 2nd row. There's no way of him really attacking the likes of Eric Axelsson. He's going to have to carve through a number of very quick drivers, and drivers who will be desperate to try and make a bit of a claim here in the endurance race as well. So, yeah, not ideal for him. Joel Lask, though, all the way down in 9th place. That's going to be a positive for Nicky Taylor and Eric Axelsson, obviously. Andy Carroll, again, just improving constantly. Zanatachi, again, a little later improvement compared to the likes of Andy Carroll, but still really nice to see him pushing on strong. And Kenny Press here about to come across the line. He will be the final driver to cross the line. And as he does so, we're going to shoot to a very quick break.
Qualifying complete here at Spa for the 40-minute pit stop race in the VRRC Touring Car Championship European Tour, which will be starting in the next few minutes. It's a third pole position of the season for Eric Axelsen, championship contender Eric Axelsen, and Eric joins us again here. Well, Eric, your qualifying performances all season long have been very, very strong. You've never qualified worse than third, and this is a good time, I think, to get your third pole position of the season.
Yeah, thanks. I'm happy with that. I don't know actually where it came from. It felt like a one-hit wonder, to be honest. But yeah.
It's an excellent effort and always a bonus to start at the front of the grid, but how much of an advantage do you expect that to be here? Because that run up the hill out of Eau Rouge and Radion, you've got to expect to be under some attack there, haven't you?
Yeah, it depends how many push to pass you want to waste on the first lap and up Eau Rouge and the straight. So yeah, we'll see. It's gonna be tough, I think.
Yeah, we saw this at Monza actually. A lot of drivers used that push to pass quite early in the race. Is it worth here almost letting people go past you in the early stages? If they want to use that hybrid, is it worth letting that happen, tagging along with them and maybe coming back at them in the second half?
I'm not sure, mate. I'm not sure. It depends on the strategies and what the tires people are on. Because I don't think you can afford to let someone slow you down. Yeah, I don't know.
That's a good point, and you probably won't know, have an answer to my next question either, but what do you make of the tyre strategy here today? Because Spa can be hard on tyres, and some of the numbers we're hearing are that the tyres are not going to be doing all that many laps before the grip wears out of them. So any idea what the winning strategy might be?
The tyre wear is definitely worse than Monza. I think even medium will be tough. But we may see some on soft plus hard. Yeah, I think we will see a lot of different strategies. It'll be interesting.
That's what we're hoping for, certainly. Eric, we'll let you go and make your preparations for the race, but congratulations on the third pole position of the season. I think we can now officially crown you the qualifying king.
Thank you, Andy.
Eric Axelsen then will start from pole position, but Jack, as I was alluding to in that interview, it might not count for a lot by the time they get to the Kemmel Straight for the first time.
No, it's they're going to have to really keep that in mind, stay a little bit patient, and obviously, pick their timing, shall we say, when they actually try and make a move, or even if they end up getting a bit punted out wide or hung out to dry or anything like that, then again, a long race. Keep it calm, keep it collected, and try and move forward. If we get a nice close-up shot of Mr. Axelsen's car there, right in the cockpit, it's a shame it's virtual, really. Otherwise, we probably could have seen what he was thinking behind the eyes. But somewhere Farrell is sort of panning his camera around. It really is. It just goes to show, actually, although Assetto Corsa is a fairly old game, if you install the right mods and install the right packages and everything like that, it can be a very attractive-looking simulator.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a fantastic sim, and certainly the drivers enjoy racing in it. It's a sim that gives you an awful lot of good feedback behind the wheel, and visually is very appealing as well. And we certainly enjoyed watching the racing that it provides over recent times. I noticed we've got another guest in the commentary box. We've got just over 5 minutes or so before the race gets underway. So a brilliant opportunity, I think, to have a chat to VRRC regular Dave Marshall. Dave, interesting qualifying session we saw there. Some very tight times at the top, and that gives me some hope for some good racing, because it's a long lap. You might expect there to be a bit of separation, but in qualifying, not the case.
Yeah, a bit of a strange qualifying session, actually. A few drivers maybe not quite where we expect to see them. I know Elliott was very quick in practice and just didn't seem to quite put it together in quali. But I do think it's one of them tracks, unlike the other tracks we've been to, with it being so long, it's nearly 2.5 minutes of track. It puts a lot of pressure on them drivers to really hook up that one proper good lap they get on softs. Even by the end of the second lap, the tyres have started to drop off, and you cannot quite get them last sectors as easy as what you could on that first push and lap you get. So really, you've only got one real chance to do it on that set of tyres, and then you've got to pit and do it all again. So I think maybe the extra pressure on a few of these drivers actually paid its price a little bit. And Eric there, we've seen him multiple times before, that practice and just that calm-headed, calm-headed Eric has managed to put it on pole yet again.
Talking about pressure, I mean, for those that are now in the thick of a championship battle, that pressure has to be building, doesn't it? Because we've got 5 races to go now, 1 here tonight, 2 at Bikaniki and then 2 at Silverstone. So for the likes of Nicky Taylor and Joel Lask and Eric Axelsen, every single race that we have, every single point that is up for grabs now is going to be so important. And a race like this, where you've got all of the tyre strategy to go through and all of the hybrids to manage, you only got 15 hybrid uses over 40 minutes, that stress level must be building and building because they've got so much to think about.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't know whether you've already touched upon this, Andy, but that hybrid system, it is so effective around here. You can get maybe 10 activations in 1 lap. That's a huge amount of your 15 taken, and it makes your car very, very vulnerable across a race. But it also might give you about 2.5 second advantage on a lap, and then you get 3 points for fastest lap. So it's going to be one of them. I think keep an eye on Nicky Taylor. If he's not having the race that he necessarily wants, I definitely think Nicky's going to be one of them boys taking that risk, trying to get that fastest lap using the hybrid. Joel, I know he's got the bit between his teeth. He's already said they're finishing qualifying. He's definitely going to try and get through. He's going to be one of the ones really pushing on this race, the racer style strategy, rather than maybe their more endurance style where you let the race pan itself out, pick places off. Joel's going to be going for this from the green light and trying to make as many positions as he possibly can. And then also the other side that we didn't necessarily see too much in qualifying of is how much this slipstream really is worth. Andy Carroll got a slipstream from Josh Martin, and he found 4/10 on his lap just in slipstream alone. So if someone in this race can find another driver to maybe work with, maybe even get up behind them and push them down the straight, let them know they're working together, we could see drivers finding so much lap time in just slipstream alone.
The other thing that we should touch on before the race starts, I think, Dave, is tyre management. Eric just spoke to us a little bit about that, and he said that ideally you'd maybe want to be on the mediums and then change to another set of mediums. He doesn't think that's going to be easy to do, though. So have you heard any whispers from the drivers about what the best strategy might be?
I think for them drivers wanting to bag some good solid points here tonight, which is realistically what's key. For me, the only strategy to really go ahead with here is hard. Them who might be able to adapt the strategy as the race and might do hard medium, I think it's very, very risky going out on mediums at the start, because it boxes yourself into that strategy of having to do basically that from the offset. So I'll keep your options open, go hard, try and race within the tyre, and then see what the race does.
We shall see how that goes, and indeed whether they do try and manage the tyres or whether they get sort of wrapped up in the racing, because that, I think, is probably what's going to happen. It's certainly what we saw at Monza, but tyre wear is always a bit more of an issue here at Spa, that's for sure. Dave, thank you for joining us. It's going to be a fascinating race. Who is your pick for this one? I'm going to put you on the spot then, because I know that you analyse these things a bit more than we do. What do you reckon? Who's going to win? Yeah,
I mean, a bit that I didn't point out, Ian, this is why I'm humming and hawing a bit of this, is it depends that much for me on race start, for race position. With turn 1 being that short of a run and that tight of a bend, you'd usually say use hybrid off the line, get the run and use that to overtake the drivers, but you're then losing a hybrid that's not really justified down to turn 1. So you know what, I'm going to say Josh Martin for the win. I think he's got some really good speed here, and I'd be surprised if you couldn't relate that into a bit more of overall race pace. But the outsider chances are people like Nicky Taylor off the line, Rich Hayden, we know how good he is on the brakes into tight corners. Them drivers that's maybe willing to risk that early hybrid down to turn 1 might catch the likes of maybe Andy Carroll and Eric off the line, might make them vulnerable. So we'll wait and see, but probably Josh Martin for the overall win.
There we go. I did for a horrifying moment think you were going to name half the grid then, Dave, and leave it at that. But thank you for actually settling on Josh Martin. I don't say that I disagree with you on that either. I think Josh will definitely be up there. Dave, thanks for joining us. Enjoy the race. So here we go then. We are ready to go almost with the grid having been formed. The drivers' final preparations taking place then. 15 hybrid uses. Now, hopefully this graphic will work properly today. The green number next to the white car numbers is how many hybrid uses the drivers have. It flashes from memory orange when they're using it, and then blue when they're on their cooldown, because you get 10 seconds. Once you press the button, it's on for 10 seconds, the hybrid, the extra power that you've got. Then you have to wait at least 2 seconds during that cooldown period before you can use it again in the race, and that is going to be something that I think we'll see flashing like a Christmas tree here in the early stages, Jack.
Yeah, I would imagine that a lot of drivers are trying to take advantage of it early on, and then obviously just try and get to the end with whatever they've got left and hope that everybody has had the same tactic.
Here we go then. Red light starting to come on. Eric Axelsen on the left. Andy Carroll on the front row for the first time this season is on the right. Who gets into La Source first? How much does that matter? Very little, I think, because I think we'll see most of the overtaking heading up towards Les Combes. The red lights go out there. We're away and racing here at Spa. Good start made by Axelsen from the pole position. The pole sitter will lead them down into the first corner. Not so well away, though, for Carroll. So Josh Martin's up the inside of him for second place. Andy late on the brakes, though. So too is Zanatachi on the outside line. Andy Carroll way wide, way wide onto the tarmac runoff area. It doesn't exist anymore at Spa. You won't get away with that these days. Down the hill then towards Eau Rouge we go. Axelsen leads. Side by side for second, though. Andy Carroll versus Josh Martin. Neither of them wants to give way, but it's Carroll who will hold on to that second place. All of them running wide over the curb as they start the climb up the Kemmel Straight.
Josh Martin probably did the sensible thing there. He just decided he was going to sit in behind Andy Carroll, maybe use the slipstream, obviously using his hybrid down the Kemmel Straight, as is pretty much everyone, unsurprisingly, and try and maybe make the move into Les Combes, which is exactly what he's trying to do around the outside here. It's going to be tight. I think he's just about got it as they go through the right-hand side of the chicane. Yes, it's Andy Carroll in third, which means Josh Martin has managed to move himself up to second.
Yeah, that was important, but of course Axelsen's already over a second clear because Eric was on the hybrid button up the hill as well. That's Joel Lask up the inside of Jens Verhoeven. Verhoeven slipping down the order ever so slightly. Sorry, that's Nicky Taylor he's battling with, actually. Verhoeven is in behind in the HFT Academy car. Out through Speaker's Corner, down the hill towards Pion they go. The whole field pretty well compacted with just Kenny Press a little bit detached from the tail end of the field. But it's Axelsen that leads, then Martin second, already getting away from Carroll in third. Then it's Zanatachi holding well in fourth there, Jack. Good start from Paul.
Yeah, no, impressive on that one. He's really sort of trying to establish himself as one of those front-running drivers. A lot of drivers are quite often, at the early stages, you're missing the apex here, there, and everywhere. Zanatachi, you can see running a little bit wide there. Carroll as well, using the hybrid in a very unusual place, I would say, because he's still on the hybrid, even though he's braking, essentially, around Stavelot. As Joel Lask runs wide, and that's going to allow Nicky Taylor, championship rival, to get up his inside as they go over towards Blanchemont. It's the timing of the hybrid use now, which is the most important thing. Nicky Taylor had it on a little bit earlier than Joel Lask. Verhoeven's there as well to try and aid Nicky Taylor's ability to get through. Joel Lask's skill going through Blanchemont touches that curb and is still on the hybrid system. Can he get up the inside of Nicky Taylor into the chicane? He's looking, he's late on the brakes. He's not late enough, though, and in fact runs a little bit wide potentially, and that'll ruin his run over the start-finish straight.
He was trying to defend from Verhoeven as much as attack Taylor, I think, there, and he succeeded in at least keeping Verhoeven behind. But Joel has used 4 of his allocated 15 hybrid uses already, and Andy Carroll's used 3 as well. So a few of them going pretty hard on the hybrid in the early stages. The lead margin at the end of the first lap is around about 1 second then. So Josh Martin in the second half of that lap did chase down Eric Axelsen slightly. It's a similar gap then of 8/10 back to Andy Carroll in third, and he leads the train through then with Dalton Ayres fourth, Zanatachi fifth, Sick Taylor seventh last, 8th Verhoeven. No attempt to stay within track limits over the top of Radion. On board with Jens Verhoeven. Ahead is Joel Lask, behind is Rich Hayden. Joel again on that hybrid jab. That's a third of his hybrids used already.
Yeah, but he's not messing around, is he? He wants track position more than anything, and potentially even the fastest lap of the race. I think Dave Marshall pointed out that he might be going for that one earlier on because he is so far down the order. But the problem is, if you're going for fastest lap of the race and you're in traffic, you're never going to set the fastest lap of the race. You're better off trying to get yourself a bit of clean air as Jens Verhoeven looks up the outside because Joel Lask was hunkering up behind Nicky Taylor. And there's contact. Jens Verhoeven makes contact with Joel Lask, turns him about 90 degrees. Joel Lask keeps the power on and the front wheel drive straightens him back out. Verhoeven goes wide through No Name, and it looks like Rich Hayden is interested, but almost a big moment there for Lask.
there is a phrase often used in touring car racing called push to pass, and we're not referring to hybrid buttons here. Back through goes Joel Lask. Rich Hayden will follow him back through, but that was about as clear of a push to pass as I think I've ever seen that. Oh no, more contact, Lask into Hayden. Lask was coming across when Hayden was already alongside him, and Joel, having re-inherited that place from Jens Verhoeven, ends up losing 2 more anyway. That was a little bit clumsy, and Joel Lask, you sense a bit of desperation slipping in here. Joel is second in the points, remember. Nicky Taylor only 6 points ahead of him. That's why their battle was so significant, and now there is a lot of real estate separating the two because Verhoeven and Hayden are battling. Lask can't get back past them, and Nicky Taylor is vanishing into the distance.
He is indeed. He's loving life in his mirrors right now, isn't he? Nicky Taylor as Verhoeven tries to get past Rich Hayden's contact, and that's massive. We saw, well, I think you were telling me about it, your experience at Monza, Andy. That's exactly what happened there. It was almost like they were trying to push themselves through Blanchimont, and as Rich Hayden can't control his car to get back on the circuit, he ends up sitting on the racing line and makes contact with another driver. Kenny Press, I believe, is the other driver involved in that one. And Jens Verhoeven, I don't think, will enjoy his driver's debrief with the stewards after this one.
He's not made many friends, has he, on that particular lap, Jens Verhoeven. He is still behind Joel Lask as well after it all, so it really didn't benefit him in any way. But Joel Lask has now dropped 3 seconds to Nicky Taylor, with whom he was battling. Kenny Press is out of the race, by the way. Rich Hayden back in the pit lane as well, so he will be out too. So 2 retirements already from a dramatic moment there on the run up towards Blanchimont. That bump drafting that they were trying, it is perilous, definitely. These cars will do it. The bumpers line up reasonably well, but if you're off centre even slightly, then it will send the car around off your front bumper, and that I think is what we saw there. There go the leading group then. The top 5 sort of breaking away now. Nicky Taylor trying to chase after them in 6th place. Joel Lask, now with only 9 hybrid uses left, is holding on for the time being in 7th, with Verhoeven 8th, Mark Hughes 9th, and Reece Bell, Jack, only 10th, didn't qualify very well, and isn't yet making the progress I might have expected.
No, it's not been ideal for him so far, but equally, as we've seen already, even though this is an endurance race, we've had 6 minutes, and there's been loads of incidents already. We've got 34 minutes to go. It's going to be a lot of action, I think. Andy Carroll down to 9 uses of the hybrid left. Joel Lask also on 9. The likes of Eric Axelsen, who's had a really nice gap, even though Andy has been using a lot of hybrids behind him. He's still got 12, and that's a fairly significant sort of bit of data that you can take away here. We expected a lot of drivers to maybe use a lot of the hybrid early on, but the likes of Eric Axelsen leading this race by about a second, still holding on to those, maybe thinking if he can just hold on to them until he starts getting attacked, he doesn't need to use them.
Yes, also worth mentioning tyres here, because there is a plethora of tyre strategies at the front of the field. Andy Carroll in 2nd place is on soft tyres, so we can expect him to pit probably a little bit earlier than those around him. Axelsen and Martin either side of him on the mediums, but Elliot Dalton-Ayres, 4th place, Jack, and on the hard tyre. He's keeping pace, and he should now get quicker compared to those around him over the next few laps.
You know what? I hadn't even looked at the tyre situation. It's been that dramatic. But you bang on the money. Elliot Dalton-Ayres is probably thinking to himself, you know what? I'm in a fairly good position here. I don't know, because the drivers don't know how many hybrid systems the other drivers have left. I don't know if they also have any idea whether they're on different tyres or anything like that. So maybe Elliot will be sitting there sort of desperately wondering why he can't catch up to the likes of Axelsen, Carroll and Martin. But especially Carroll, you will expect to see his tyres dropping off a cliff in a couple of laps' time. All of a sudden, that podium space starts to open up. And you're right, Elliot Dalton-Ayres is in prime position to try and take advantage.
This is what Dave Marshall was alluding to pre-race, because someone like Andy Carroll starting on the soft tyres, I really didn't expect to see anyone on the soft tyres. I was expecting mediums maybe, but Andy is the only one on the softs. The trouble is, if those tyres run out of life at the end of this lap, for example, after 10 minutes of racing, even the hards are going to struggle to do 30 minutes of racing. So you've sort of yourself into a box there where you have to go on the hards and you have to try and manage that over the rest of the race. So Andy Carroll actually keeping pace well, though. I mean, we're saying his tyres should be going off. The current evidence does not suggest that, because he's keeping this gap to Axelsen at around about 9/10. He's keeping Josh Martin at bay as well in 3rd, and the 3 of them are collectively getting away from the 2 hard tyre shod cars behind, because not only is Dalton-Ayres on the hard tyre, but Paul Zanatachi as well. And if we're impressed with Dalton-Ayres, we almost have to be more impressed with Zanatachi, because we expect to see Elliot up near the front on the hard tyres. Paul, though, this is a big improvement from him.
Yeah, I think, to be fair, a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned that Paul Zanatachi was very quick in the historic touring cars, and basically anything front-wheel drive, and we do a lot of touring cars here at VRRC. So, really, I would say actually Zanatachi was probably out of position before, and now he's starting to push back where we almost start to expect him to be, around that sort of fight for the top 5. Maybe not championship winning in these sort of big championships that we host, but certainly right up there. And it's nice to see Paul really sort of fighting forward. One driver we are missing today is obviously Carl Felders. He's been in the YouTube chat. Bit of a shame that we can't have Kyle here, because, again, he's one of those drivers that at the time when he started, him and Paul were really quick together in the academy. And obviously both of those drivers have improved massively over the course of this touring car season. So it would have been nice to see how Kyle fared in this particular evening. But here, oh, actually, scrap all that. I'll change subject. Andy Carroll in the pits.
Yes, he is. Andy Carroll bailed for the pit lane. I was about to say that he was actually clawing some time back out of Eric Axelsen there, but that's because of judicious use of the hybrids. He's now got less hybrid left than anybody else. So Andy Carroll is in, and what tyres will he go onto? It's got to be the hard, surely. If the softs can do 10 minutes, then you'd imagine certainly the mediums are not going to do 30. You would imagine the hard tyres will be the one that he goes for. We'll find out when he pops back out of the pit lane, but he does drop to the back. And of course, Jack, he will rejoin, in theory, in clean air. There's a lot to be said for that, so we'll see what his lap times are when he rejoins the circuit. Meanwhile, Jens Verhoeven versus Joel Lask round 2 is about to kick off, I think, because Verhoeven is in the slipstream over the top of Radion. He's quicker over the top of Radion, and despite the fact that Joel is on the hybrid, Jens is almost alongside him. Peaks to the outside. You can see that hybrid taking effect on Joel Lask's car, but that means he's down to 7 uses of that hybrid button now. And okay, he held on to the position there, Jack, but actually didn't gain him as much track position, if you like, down that straight. Didn't gain him as much distance over Jens as you might have expected.
No, and I was quite interested to see Jens' body language in the car as well. Oh, is he going to look for an inside line here? That's a very difficult braking zone. I would have been surprised if he went for that one. Oh, that's actually where they made contact a couple of laps ago as well, but they just managed to hold on. Yeah, as I was saying, I was actually quite interested in where Jens Verhoeven's car placement was during that going down the Camel Straight. You know, once he saw that Joel Lask was using the hybrid, it was pulling away from him, inching away from him. I was expecting Jens to maybe pull in behind, use some of the slipstream, and then he would have still had that overtaking opportunity. I'm just wondering whether he's got a little bit nervous because of previous incidents, that he doesn't want to really charge up to the back of someone, just in case it all goes horribly wrong again.
You could be onto something there. Certainly that would be the sensible approach. When you're already in trouble, perhaps best not to attract any further attention to yourself. But I think he is every bit as quick as Joel here, because Joel, as I mentioned a few times, is really using the hybrid a lot, but cannot escape. So as they head out of Court Paul Frere, well, Verhoeven very wide over that runoff area on the exit. That will drop in time. He jumps back on the hybrid, though. So hybrid plus a slipstream here for Jens, meaning that he might well close in through Blanchimont. Is he going to be close enough into the bus stop? I think he will be. That second phase of the hill really reels in Joel Lask through the left-hander. Can't quite stay close enough, though. Onto the brakes, into the chicane they go. Joel still sort of hooks the right-hand side of the road there just to deter Jens from going for the late lunge, and they stay in the same order, through the right, through the left, and the battle continues. But Jens on those hard tyres, remember, Jack. Perhaps that explains why at this point of the race, now nearly 13 minutes in, he's a bit quicker than Lask ahead.
Well, I was going to suggest that there may be a sneaky suspicion that the medium tyres for Joel Lask are starting to get a little bit overheated, starting to get cooked a little bit, and that's why Verhoeven is able to pull up to the back of him. Not easily. I don't want to put Jens Verhoeven down, but Joel Lask over the course of this season has been significantly quicker than Jens. This sort of race pace is not something we used to see, especially as Jens Verhoeven going a lot quicker than Joel Lask at parts of the circuit. A lot of it will be slipstream, as is being demonstrated here. And again, Jens Verhoeven, the slipstream is so effective, he doesn't need to use the hybrid, and yet he's still clinging onto the back of Joel Lask, who is using the hybrid, and has now only got 6 left. But look, that gap is pretty much the same as it was as they were going into the first corner. So it's Jens Verhoeven's to lose, in my opinion, right now.
Yeah, he's driving well at this point. Might not have covered himself in glory earlier on, and he closes right into the back bumper again of Joel Lask there in this fight for 6th place. So yeah, needs to be careful here, does Jens Verhoeven. He's already on a bit of a slippery slope and doesn't need more contact. Runs very wide there through Speaker's Corner, and that means he's not going to have a great run down the hill in towards Puon. So through this very, very quick double apex left-hander. And again, Jens a bit wide of the initial apex there, but he knows he's got that toe up the hill at the start and the end of the lap. And so in a way, he doesn't need to push too hard through this middle sector because he can stay with Joel through the third sector again. He's so much later on the brakes, though, than the black number 8 car ahead of him. And you can see how easy it might be to roll into the back of another car when you're braking that much later than them.
Yeah, and especially if you're unaware of like maybe what tyre they're on, maybe you don't know when they're going to come off the brakes and everything like that. And yeah, it is quite difficult, I would say, to be able to gauge that. But they've been behind each other for long enough now, or they've been together for long enough now. They should be able to see where one is weaker compared to the other. Just having a look, who's been into the pits? Obviously, Andy Carroll has. Is anybody else? Paul Laramie, John Jones? It's difficult to see, isn't it? But I think still the only driver who's been in the pits at the moment is Andy Carroll.
I think you're right, and he came out on the hard tyre, as we expected, and he's been using his hybrid quite a bit to try and set some good lap times. He's just catching Paul Laramie, actually. In fact, there he is, and needs to get past Paul pretty quickly, because a big part of his strategy here is the fact that he's out in clean air on fresh tyres, but Paul Laramie's fighting him hard here. He's going to try and get around the outside of him through the left-hander, and in fairness, Paul saw him coming and managed to stay out of the way. He knew that wasn't really his fight. In comes John Jones just ahead, so we are now starting to get a few of them into the pit lane. Of course, most of the other drivers started on medium tyres, so this is now the window of the race where they can pit. Now, we were querying, weren't we, at the start of the race, Jack, whether you could do medium. Now, to do medium, you have to get to around half race distance before pitting. Well, we're only 4 minutes away from that, so maybe you can do this without having to run those slower hard tyres.
Yeah, but the drivers who are on those hard tyres and go a little bit longer, and then maybe think about having the mediums, which will be really quick at the end. You can use more hybrid. You can really torch the tyres a little bit more towards the end and get those flying laps in. Whereas medium, you will definitely be conserving those tyres, I think. There was a bit of confusion before we went live as well, how many laps potentially that these drivers are going to have to get out of these tyres. And again, that is all down to the race pace, 2 minute 27 lap. I think you theorised about that would be about 16 laps, did you say?
15, 16, something like that. Yeah, obviously they'll have a slow lap at some point because of the pit stop. But yeah, I reckon we're going to hit halfway, aren't we, in about a lap and a half? So yeah, 40,
that's
14,
8 laps
15,
in total, isn't it? It's 8 laps. For a medium stint, you would expect 8 laps if you're going to go halfway. So we're on lap 6 at the moment. Some drivers having to bail into the pits a little bit early. Obviously not Andy Carroll, we're talking about more John Jones. I'm more interested to see when Axelson and Martin start dropping off time-wise.
Which isn't happening yet, is it really?
No.
Because their pace is still really good. So Eric is also good compared to Josh Martin. He's pulling away from him now. Remember, they did originally have Andy Carroll slotted in between them as well, so it's looking good this for Eric Axelson at the moment. Then up towards the top of the hill comes this, I hesitate to call it a battle, because I do think that Jens Verhoeven, despite the fact he keeps getting very close to the back of Joel Lask's car, I do think he's working with Joel for the time being, perhaps feeling a little bit of remorse for what happened earlier on in the race. Into the chicane they go. He does sort of hover around the left rear corner of Joel's car, and they both stay on the racetrack again. So yeah, if they're staying out now, then it does mean they will get to that 8th lap, the halfway mark, without having pitted. So if you are Elliot Dalton-Ayres now, or Paul Zanatachi, or even Nicky Taylor, perhaps, you're starting to think, oh, maybe I should have started on the mediums, because they've dropped a good chunk of time to Axelson and Martin, which maybe they didn't have to.
Yeah, I was going to say, on that previous lap, Eric Axelson and Josh Martin, who were the two benchmarks, obviously, on the medium, 28, well, very low 28s. 2 minute 28 dead and 2 minute 28 1. Elliot Dalton-Ayres on the hard and Paul Zanatachi on the hard, they're putting in 2 minutes 28 and a half and 2 minutes 28.6. So 0.4 of a second slower than the two drivers ahead of them on that previous lap. Now, there's an argument to say that the looks of it, they might start fighting each other. But they're still a little bit slower, is my point. And like we theorised, maybe the mediums aren't the end of the world. Jens Verhoeven trying to go around the outside and squeeze his way onto the inside of the left-hander there. But again, Joel Lask just about holds on.
Yes, he does. Back up the inside, though, goes Verhoeven, and Joel Lask. Well, there goes my theory of them working together. I don't think Jens Verhoeven is working with Joel Lask. He wants to try and get past him, and now they are going wheel to wheel, hemorrhaging time as they do so, when they're probably going to be in the pit lane this time anyway. Out wide goes Verhoeven, rejoins the circuit just behind Joel Lask. Now, speaking of lap times, Jack, do interrupt me if something interesting happens on screen, by the way. Andy Carroll, on the previous lap, 2/10 slower than the race leader. So, despite the fact he's on fresh tyres, despite the fact he's had clear air, Eric Axelsen is gapping him. So at the moment, I think this is big advantage Axelsen, and there's a good chance actually that Josh Martin, who is closing in on Eric on this lap, could jump ahead of Andy as well.
Yeah, no, it's going to be very interesting, actually. I'm looking forward to them coming into the pits. And equally these two, I mean, Jens Verhoeven obviously wants that track position. So when he goes into the pits, he can come back out, he'll be hopefully ahead. But getting very aggressive, as you said, hemorrhaging time. But you're right, that Andy Carroll is really a spanner in the mix, isn't it, in a lot of ways. And here goes Jens Verhoeven on that hybrid, makes it look a little bit easier than potentially it will do as they go into chicane. I don't think Lask is fighting this. I think he's fine to go into the pits behind Jens Verhoeven. I could be wrong, because they might not go into the pits. But again, Lask has a lot less hybrid uses left. They're hit down on the brakes, slowing it right down. Are they going to keep to the right end of the circuit? No, they're going to go for another lap. On Joel Lask on the mediums, deciding he doesn't need to go, and Eric Axelsen and Josh Martin. Nobody has jumped into the pits yet with those medium tyres. So all of our theories and all of our guesswork is completely out the window.
What do we know, hey? Maybe they're trying to stretch it another 5 or 6 minutes, another, 2 laps or so. Maybe stick the soft tyres on. I think that's a risk that's not worth taking, personally, but perhaps that's what they're doing, because you're right, Eric Axelsen choosing to stay out, and so too Josh Martin. Josh Martin, though, is a little bit quicker than the race leader at the moment. Andy Carroll, by the way, just came through and did a 28.4, which was now quicker than the leader, but not as quick as Josh Martin. So the fastest driver on track right now is the man in second place. He's not really close enough to the leader to be getting much of a tow, I don't think. So this is genuine pace from Josh Martin, and maybe he's looked after his tyres a bit better than Eric, because they're both on the mediums, remember.
Yeah, we didn't see how many hybrids he's used, but we did mention earlier that Eric had a lot more than Josh, and Josh now has more than Eric. So he's been conservative on his tyres, and he's been conservative on the extra power as well. So really, he's in a fantastic position here. Well done on picking that one up. Elliot Dalton-Ayres has only got 7 left, so really we can't, even though he's on those hard tyres, he might be able to go longer in the stint. I don't think he's really in a conversation to be a race winner here, Elliot Dalton-Ayres, especially as look at the background. Those 3 drivers, 3rd, 4th and 5th, Elliot, Paul Zanatachi and Nicky Taylor, are very close to each other. And all it takes is one little look at the inside, and all of a sudden their lap time plummets by about 5 seconds. So, yeah, no, I think Josh Martin, you're absolutely right, is in prime position right now.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by this. I love this kind of racing, and I will definitely be lobbying for more of these longer races in the future here on the VRRC, because with the different tyre compounds especially, there are lots of different ways to skin the cat. You know, you can come at this and try and manage your tyres and run a softer compound, but maybe not drive quite as hard. You can go on the hard tyres and push, but on a tyre that, you know, might not have a huge amount of pace in it at the very start of the race. There are lots of different ways to go about it. And of course, they're not making it up on the fly either. They will have been doing hours and hours and hours of practice before the event. And sometimes I think you can scare yourself almost into going for a certain strategy. And it turns out the tyres are lasting pretty well. Nicky Taylor here to the outside of Paul Zanatachi. He has caught Dalton-Ayres and Zanatachi, and he's now about to take 4th place away from Paul, or is he? Zanatachi will stand his ground on the inside as Josh Martin pits. Now that I didn't expect, Jack. He looked quicker than Axelsen, perhaps wanting to capitalise on that now rather than stay out a lap too long. Let's see what tyres he comes back out on, and crucially where he is in relation to Andy Carroll.
Has Josh Martin got a spotter as well as Joel Lask jumps into the pits? Have they got a spotter? Is there an ability that they can come in and they know that they'll be in clean air when they come back out with a lot of hybrid systems in use, and try and get an undercut potentially on the likes of Eric Axelsen? Going to be very interesting. Josh Martin doesn't come out in clean air, so maybe my theory is absolute rubbish. And is he going to be behind? Yes, he is. He's going to be behind V-Spell. That's not going to be ideal as they go through Eau Rouge and up through Radion. What he will have is a little bit of a slipstream, but it's, as I said, not ideal for Josh Martin there to be caught up. But more important, I would say, is actually the fact that he has come out ahead of Andy Carroll. I've only just noticed that, actually. So Andy Carroll's undercut, not quite being met with the pace that he was probably hoping for. Josh Martin's come out on those hard tyres. You know they're going to last to the end if the mediums lasted that long.
Yeah, surprised he's gone for the hards, but we'll cover that in a moment. I think the reason he pitted is that someone had told him Andy Carroll was lapping quicker than him, because if he'd have stayed out one lap longer, he might have been able to hang on to that place. But now they're both bottled in behind Reece Bell, although as I say that, Josh Martin does get up the inside into Brissell, so he gets that place, gets a car between himself and Andy Carroll, but I think that was absolutely perfectly judged. He's in clean air now, he's on fresher tyres than Eric Axelsen, he's using all of the road and quite a lot more on the exit of Speaker's Corner, and now Andy Carroll in the background, look, getting back up the inside of Reece Bell as well. Can he get through on the inside line? Oh, he can with a bit of a door bang there, just eases Reece a little bit wider, but Reece, who has not pitted yet, remember, is on older tyres and not really a match for these two. So, Andy Carroll through, Josh Martin through, Eric Axelsen surely on his way into the pit lane this time. I am intrigued, though, by the tyre choice for Josh Martin. I'd have gone mediums there.
Yeah, no, we're over halfway, which means that the mediums were the correct choice, I would say, or the obvious choice. This isn't F1. We don't have to use two different compounds of tyres. You could have gone medium and medium. Yeah, the hard tyres, he's gone for the shorter stint on the harder compound, which doesn't really sound quite right if you're talking to a strategist or any kind of racing fan, really, does it, Andy? But, well, you never know. He could end up, obviously, winning the race, and we're all eating our words here. We have been wrong before.
It depends which team strategist you ask. If it's someone wearing a red t-shirt, then maybe they would think this is the way to go. In comes Eric Axelsen, the race leader, into the pit lane. This is crucial now. Then Eric Axelsen has stayed out one lap longer than Josh Martin. Josh Martin has rejoined, as we've seen, in 7th place at the moment. Mark Hughes is in 2. That means Elliot Dalton-Ayres and Nicky Taylor, Paul Zanatachi and Jens Verhoeven all go through into the top 4 places. They're all on the hard tyres, remember. This, though, could be for the race lead. Once this is all said and done, out of the pit lane comes Eric Axelsen, and he will have a healthy advantage. Eric Axelsen back onto the road, and Jack on the medium tyres. That's a sensible thing to do. That might well have been the race-winning move.
You never know. I mean, there was about a 10th in between their laps when they were running on the same tyres. This will be the first time where we can see representative how much quicker the medium is compared to the hard. And as we mentioned many times already when talking about Josh Martin's choice of tyres, the medium is going to get to the end because it got over halfway of the race. So Axelsen is in a fantastic position to all of a sudden take this race victory, and without too much of a threat, if we're going to go by the fact that, yeah, maybe there's half a second in the tyre per lap. Jens Verhoeven, Paul Zanatachi, Nicky Taylor and Elliot Dalton-Ayres are all drivers who haven't yet taken to the pit. And as I said, it'd be interesting to see whether the likes of Elliot Dalton-Ayres and Nicky Taylor, whether they go as long as they can on these hards, and then in the last 10 minutes, which is only about a lap away, stick the softs on to try and upset the apple cart.
That's exactly what I'd be doing at this point. I think you're sort of locked into that now, really. There's not much point coming out on the mediums because you'll only be maybe a fraction quicker than some of those that are on older medium tyres. Andy Carroll's struggling a bit now, maybe. Remember, he's been on these tyres now for the best part of 20 minutes. Yes, they're the hard tyres, but they will now start to be not feeling terrible, but they're not going to be yielding as much grip as those around him on much, much fresher tyres. So this is the downside to starting on the softs, because you have to pit earlier and you have to then run those newer tyres for quite a long time, and by the time everyone else comes out of the pit lane around you, your tyres are some 15 or 20 minutes older than theirs. Nicky Taylor is not that far away from challenging for the race lead here. I know that it's because this lot haven't pitted, but Nicky's actually recovered quite well from a slightly lowly grid position and could be in contention for a podium by the end of this. Through goes Dalton-Ayres. He stays on the track again. I expect Nicky Taylor to do the same because his pace is strong, although no, I think he's in. So again, what do I know? Nicky Taylor bails for the pit lane, and is this too early for softs, Jack?
I think Andy Carroll, he went for about 10 minutes, didn't he, on the softs? So Nicky Taylor, does he think that he can hold on to those tyres for a bit longer than maybe the likes of Andy Carroll? Has he even got the information that Andy even was on the tyres to start with? We're not entirely sure as Jens Verhoeven comes into the pit as well, and the race leaders, or the provisional race leaders, we should say, because Elliot Dalton-Ayres still holds on to the race lead, start to file their way through. Eric Axelsen, Josh Martin and Andy Carroll. Now, the next lap will be able to really give us an idea of how much quicker the likes of Axelsen is compared to Martin, and whether he's faster at all, of course, because we've been proven wrong so many times so far this evening. We could be proven wrong yet again. Where's Nicky Taylor come back out? He's back out on the circuit. He's in 7th place behind Reece Bell, but quite a long way behind him, to be honest. He's got a big gap there, a lot of clean air, and he's out on the medium tyres. So he clearly decided that these soft tyres weren't going to last long enough. He's gone on to the mediums.
weaving around there. Look to try and get some heat into those medium tyres. Lap time-wise, Josh Martin only a 10th of a second slower than Axelsen, and that was with, we believe, a mistake at the chicane. So Josh Martin actually is keeping himself well and truly in this, and he's quicker so far on this lap than Eric Axelsen, who we expect to come out of all of this as the race leader. Once these two pit, Elliot Dalton-Ayres and Paul Zanatachi, yet to visit the pit lane, although Elliot Dalton-Ayres just going purple in the first sector. That means quicker than anybody else in Sector 1. He is absolutely flying. Of course, the car is losing weight now because the fuel is burning from it, and his hard tyres clearly are lasting well.
Yeah, he's enjoying it out there. He may have used a few of the hybrid systems, but realistically, you could probably only use 2, and that wouldn't come down to that wouldn't sort of make a purple lap time. You'd have to be using them to get a purple lap time out of it, but that doesn't necessarily mean it was all down to the hybrid, is what I'm trying to say. If I get my words out, it's quite hot in this office, annoyingly. But Elliot doing really well. Now, is this a fast in lap? Is this the fastest he can go because he knows he's going to come into the pit and he doesn't want Nicky Taylor to get that undercut on him? This is going to be the interesting sort of deciding factor. Is he going to react? Is he going to stick the softs on? He is coming into the pit. So it was an attempt at an absolute flying laps. Eric Axelsen has got purple in Sector 2, and he went green in Sector 1. Eric Axelsen starting to turn the wick up.
Yeah, this could be the new fastest lap of the race for Eric Axelsen, which is worth, remember, 3 championship points, so worth going for. Both Dalton-Ayres and Zanatachi are in, so Axelsen is about to re-inherit the race lead. He is gapping Josh Martin. It is a new fastest lap, a 2:26.9. That, I think I'm right in saying, is quicker than anyone went in qualifying, and Eric Axelsen is asserting his authority on this race. But this is exactly what he has to do, because there is a chance that in the final few laps, Josh Martin might come back in it. Remember, there is this discrepancy in the tyre compounds here. Axelsen medium, Josh Martin hard. 2.2 seconds is not a massive gap with 9.5 minutes to go. So even if Axelsen's medium tyres don't fall off a cliff, which we don't expect them to do, the mediums should be able to do the distance that he's asking of them, but they might just start to wear a bit more than the hards in the final few minutes. So he has to push now and build a cushion over Josh.
And which is why he's using the hybrids so frequently. Josh has got triple the amount of hybrids left that Eric does. Eric with 2 and Josh with 6, and even going down the Camel Straight there, we didn't see Josh using any of them, so he's clearly reserving that, maybe going for that fastest lap a little bit later on as well, because of course that could be crucial. There's no point, you could win the race or second, and that is only a difference of 2 points. So if you come second and get the fastest lap, which adds 3 points on, you actually outscore the race winner. So it could be really crucial that for Josh Martin. He might be thinking of that in the long game, which is why he's reserving as many as he can. Nicky Taylor didn't get past Elliot Dalton-Ayres, so Dalton-Ayres in lap was quick enough to just hold off the attack of the HRT driver. So it's, again, advantage Elliot Dalton-Ayres for the time being. They're both on mediums. No one has gone to the softs, which I have to say, if you ran the hard for 20 minutes, I'm slightly surprised no one rolled the dice and thought, you know what, I'd give the softs a go, see if I can upset someone.
Yeah, yes, I think the soft tyres would be quicker for a couple of laps, and even if they don't fall off that cliff, I think they would just run out of life too quickly. Yeah. I think that's the decision that they made, isn't it? So, as I say, they'll have practiced this, they'll have tested for all of these eventualities, and they've clearly decided that's not the way to go. Andy Carroll then the only driver to have used the softs at any point during the race. So, Eric Axelsen leads, 2.2-ish seconds is the margin, coming down slightly, interestingly, as they go up the hill towards the chicane, despite the fact that Josh Martin wasn't on the hybrid. So Josh clearly picking up a bit of a toe from even 2.2 seconds back or so. Andy Carroll is 2 seconds further back in third. Then this, the fight for 4th place. This is of significance, isn't it, for the championship, because Nicky Taylor is the points leader, remember. Once the drop scores are applied, he is 6 points clear of Joel Lask coming into this race, and 9 clear of Eric Axelsen, with Axelsen leading the way and at the moment holding the 3 bonus points for fastest lap as well. Then Eric could move ahead of Nicky in the championship, so Nicky needs to try and get past Dalton-Ayres here and gain a few extra championship points.
Yeah, as Dalton-Ayres has ran out. He's the first driver to run out of the hybrid. Nicky Taylor's still only got 1 left, but that could be quite crucial when they come down to the Camel Straight. It looks like Dalton-Ayres got a really nice exit, actually, didn't he? So it may be safe just for 1 more lap. With 6.5 minutes to go nearly. We're probably going to get about 2 or 3. This will probably be 3 laps to go realistically. All of a sudden, that sounds like this race has gone particularly quickly. These 40-minute races, they sound, I mean, we call them an endurance race, but actually they do fly by.
Yeah, I mean, 40 minutes isn't a long time, really, is it? It's just longer than we're used to here, maybe, at the VRRC. But we had this at Monza. There were concerns that we'd run out of things to talk about by halfway, but that's never the case. And it's the same here at Spa, because Nicky Taylor, always one to watch for if you're looking for some action, is trying to pull off a brilliant move there on his HFT Racing teammate, let's not forget, Elliot Dalton-Ayres. They run different liveries, but they do both run out of the HFT stable. Nicky Taylor with a good run out of Speaker's Corner is up the inside into Puon Corner. Elliot Dalton-Ayres is the first to run out of hybrids as well, but Nicky Taylor, did not need the hybrid advantage to go through because he gives a door to Elliot Dalton-Ayres and muscles his way into 4th place. As well he had to, because as they battle, look, you can just see a glimpse in the background of Paul Zanatachi reeling them in. So Zanatachi, who remember qualified 4th, out-qualified both of these drivers earlier on, was catching the pair. So a timely move there for the championship leader.
Yeah, touring cars, also known as bumper cars, really, aren't they? Sometimes there was that sort of typical touring car contact. Probably neither driver really that bothered by it at all, as Paul Zanatachi. Look how many hybrids he's got left, 5. And that means, if he uses them wisely, he's using one now. He's in the slipstream, he's got the hybrid, and he's got about 3 laps to go as well. There's an opportunity here that we can see Paul Zanatachi grasping that top 4 spot again, just like he did in qualifying. Through Blanchimont they go, running a little bit wide as Nicky Taylor. He's going to defend, or is Elliot Dalton-Ayres going to open the gap up on the inside? No, he goes to the outside, but again, he's looking up towards the apex, not quite managing it. There's a little bit of contact, which squirrels Nicky Taylor a little bit wide. This is all playing into the hands of Paul Zanatachi. This could go 3 wide into Stavelot.
Indeed, let's see then, up towards La Source they go. Zanatachi hunting around to the inside of Dalton-Ayres, who was never going to give him the inside line, so Paul goes to the outside instead and looks to try and get the better exit. The clever driving that from Dalton-Ayres, parked on the apex, but Zanatachi saw it coming and went to the outside instead. Superior traction, he's got his nose in front. And if he can get in front before they get to the bottom of the hill, this could be really good stuff. They're banging doors into Eau Rouge, and through goes Zanatachi. Nicely done. And we know that Dalton-Ayres has no hybrid left with which to retaliate. So Zanatachi jumps immediately on that hybrid button. I think he'll be challenging Taylor by the time they get down to Les Combes. Nicky only has 1 hybrid left as well. This could be game, set and match for Zanatachi for 4th place. Pulls to the outside line. He'll have to be really late on the brakes to beat Nicky Taylor, though. Nicky sends it in on the inside line. Side by side they go. Off the track goes Zanatachi, and that will be a bit of a contentious call. He will say he was forced off the road. Nicky will say that he passed me off the road. Let's wait and see if he gives the place back.
Yeah, I think if I was Paul Zanatachi, I'd be definitely giving that place back. It's a good finishing position. You don't want to be giving the stewards any reason to have a go at you, throw the book at you at all. But he's not getting out of the way, is he? He might be going slightly slow, and that's one way of getting him out of the way. Paul Zanatachi moves over to the inside. I think that isn't to defend. That is actually just to let him past. And unfortunately, they were fighting in a position where they couldn't really get past him very easily, and he couldn't get out of the way particularly easy either, because he only owes the position to Nicky Taylor. He doesn't owe the position to Elliot Dalton-Ayres. So it's a little bit tricky, that, for Paul Zanatachi. Luckily, they've all sorted themselves out with no damage. But yeah, bit of a shame, that one. But really good racing, almost a fantastic half a lap there by Paul Zanatachi, almost a race-defining half a lap.
Yeah, absolutely. And if he can get this 4th place away from Nicky Taylor, then I think he definitely has to be a contender for the driver of the race, because this has been a good performance. Slipped back a bit through the middle part of the race, I should say, during the pit window. But now he is going really well. Zanatachi on the mediums as well, so there's no tyre advantage here. They are both, all 3 of these on the same tyres. Paul is back on that hybrid. He's back to the outside this time. Nicky Taylor not round the outside at Blanchimont. Well, he doesn't need to. He's done it already. That's the power of the hybrid. And Paul Zanatachi with 2 hybrids left. Nicky Taylor with 1 left. This could be a sensational battle over the last couple of laps.
Yeah, a bit of a shame for Zanatachi, particularly, that he had to waste that hybrid, basically, and then had to give the position back down the Camel Straight. That sort of almost negated a lot of the advantage that he had. But all he has to do now, he won't have a clue how many hybrids Nicky Taylor has left. But all he has to do is react to when Nicky Taylor is attacking him. That's late on the brakes by Nicky. I'll tell you what, we do love watching Nicky Taylor, don't we, Andy? He's just entertainment personified quite a lot of the time. He's one of those drivers where the race is getting a little bit dull and you see him within half a second of a driver, you know what, switch the canvas to him, he'll probably end up doing something.
He's definitely going to have a go, isn't he? That's for sure. Up Radion they go, over the top of the hill. Now, Zanatachi using his hybrid to try and get away. Nicky can't really afford to, because he's on to his last one. Axelsen, by the way, just making mention of this, has also used all of his hybrid, and the lead gap is coming down. Josh Martin in second place within 2 seconds now, and with 3 push to passes left. Now, this is why I don't like calling them push to passes, because you don't just use them to pass, you can use them to manage a gap as well. Is Josh Martin coming back at Eric Axelsen? There will be 1 lap to go at the end of this one, I think. I don't think they quite got through in time to see a virtual last lap board this time. Has Axelsen got this one in the bag just yet? I'm not so sure.
Yeah, it's a bit tricky to sort of read at this point, because I think we were talking to Dave before, and he said that potentially if you use a couple of the hybrids over the lap, you can catch up about a second. He's got 3, and if he holds them for the final lap and stays within that 2-second margin, I think Eric Axelsen will have a headache going into Blanchimont for the final time and into that chicane. It's going to be a little bit tight for them both. I think Josh Martin, he's driven really well, hasn't he? We saw him drive well at Hockenheim, but this has been a different kind of strategy for him, obviously with a longer race. At Hockenheim, we saw him carve through the order and be a real entertainer, whereas here, he's been patient, he's nailed the strategy. The only sort of interesting thing is, what would have happened if he went onto the mediums? The previous lap times, I mean, Josh Martin, even having said that, on the hard tyres, Josh Martin on that last lap was 0.3 of a second quicker. So, it's a very difficult one to call.
I think the race is 5 minutes too short for this strategy to work. I think the hard tyres are now starting to come into their window, but he's maybe going to run out of time. He used a bit of hybrid there to get back within 2 seconds, but through the middle sector is slower. And look at that, half a second slower than Eric on that lap, actually. So Josh Martin, I'm not sure he's going to get there quite, but they do have lap to go, and it's a long lap as well, so certainly not giving the race win here to Eric Axelsen just yet. Josh Martin giving chase in second, Andy Carroll third, Zanatachi still fourth, by the way, just over a second now clear of Nicky Taylor in fifth. Those two both with 1 hybrid left, but actually Zanatachi checking out, isn't he, because Nicky Taylor not able to retaliate at him, and I don't think he'll be able to even by the end of this lap.
Yeah, no, he's done well, as Paul Zanatachi. He was efficient. Okay, it may have taken a third of a lap longer than it potentially should have done. But since getting past, he's really just put his head down, and he hasn't relied on the hybrids or anything like that, because Nicky Taylor still had 1 left in the pocket. He's just got his head down and showed the pace that he showed in qualifying, but actually converted it into race pace as well. So really impressive by Paul Zanatachi. Down to a second for the first place, Axelsen and Martin. Martin used the hybrid once. He's still got 1 more left. I don't think it's going to be enough unless Axelsen makes a big mistake. But this is the final lap of the race, and the pressure starts to mount.
You took the words right out of my mouth. This is where the pressure is mounting now, because Eric Axelsen can't afford a mistake. Josh Martin's doing everything he can here. You don't have to be on someone's rear bumper to force a mistake out of them. That this gap is coming down. Even in the middle sector, it's coming down now. This is telling. This has been the part of the circuit where Axelsen has been a bit quicker than Josh Martin so far this race, but Josh is reeling him in. I think the hard tyres are working well. He's going to be within a second as they start the climb out of Cours Paul Frere and towards Blanchimont for the final time. So this is going to be real nip and tuck. He'll have a slipstream. He will surely get on the hybrid button as well, and Josh Martin is going to have a real go at this. It's 1 second almost exactly as they start the climb up the hill. He must be on the hybrid now, because that gap is coming right down. 0.8 it is, 0.7 it is as they head towards the first of the left-handers. Now down to 6, now down to half a second. It's halved already on the run up the hill. Will he be close enough for a lunge into the final chicane? This 40-minute race is coming down to the final corner, and Eric Axelsen will surely have to defend the inside line. Josh Martin looks to the inside. He's creeping up on the back of Axelsen's car. Can't quite get it stopped, though. He threw everything he had at it, but it's not quite going to work. Eric Axelsen will come across the line to claim his 2nd victory of the season in a nail-biting finish. 1 more lap, and it might have been a different result, but it's Axelsen with the win. It's Martin second, and Jens Verhoeven is slow on the track. Now, if I didn't know any better, Jack, I'd say he might be out of fuel.
Yeah, I think he is, to be honest. Jens Verhoeven, I mean, he was going to get the book thrown at him anyway. I sort of get the impression anyway from his earlier race antics. He's actually getting pushed along here by Reece Bell to try and get him to the finish line. Yeah, I'm guessing he was underfueled. We don't see that very often here at VRRC, but that's because I suppose we only run 15 or 20-minute races, so don't really have to think about it too often. Joel Last comes across the line in 7th place, and I do apologise for sort of squeaking towards the end there, but that finish between Axel. Is that Paul Laramie going past Reece Bell? So Reece Bell trying to get Jens Verhoeven across the line is actually sacrificed the position there. But yeah, that finish it was almost a disaster for Josh Martin and Eric Axelsen, wasn't it? I mean, Josh really sent it, but Eric just absorbed the pressure. He didn't even defend that hard. He just thought, you know what? If you hit me, you'll probably get disqualified. I'm going to take the checker flag anyway.
Yes, indeed. Somewhere in a dark corner, Rich Hayden has a smug smile on his face, I think. Because remember, it was Rich with whom Jens tangled early on in the race, which put Rich and indeed Kenny Press out of the race. And Jens Verhoeven will be pushed by his teammates across the line to a top 10 finish. That happened, Jack, because we got an extra lap, I think. I don't think they were expecting the 16th lap. We came across the line with 5 seconds to go. And I think that's why Reece perhaps had that fuel miscalculation. The victory, though, goes to Eric Axelsen, Josh Martin second, Andy Carroll third. We will hear from all 3 of them on the other side of this short break. Well, what a race we just enjoyed then. The second of our 40-minute pit stop races in the VRRC Touring Car Championship European Tour season was another absolute thriller. It came right down to the wire with different strategies only finally sort of revealing themselves to us in the final few minutes. It was everything we hoped the race would be, and we are now able to catch up with our podium finishers, and it is a win pole position for Eric Axelsen. Eric, that makes it sound a lot easier than it was, because certainly in the final few moments there, you had a real fight on your hands.
Oh yeah, he closed up on the last lap. There was at one point on the last lap I ran wide. I lost like half a second, and then man, he's close. And then I think he had a push to pass on the last straight. Before the chicane. I was like, now it's close.
Yeah, we thought he was going to have a lunge, and it almost did, just wasn't quite close enough in the end. But you managed that race really well. Medium tyres at the start, onto the medium tyres afterwards. It's the strategy that we expected to see most of you utilise. But were you aware of the fact that Josh had gone onto the hard tyres at the middle part of the race? And if so, were you concerned that he would come back at you at the end?
I had actually no idea that he was on hards. I thought that he was a medium as well. So, and he had a impressive pace for being on hards. So I think if he had put the mediums on, it will have been really tough for me to stay in P1.
Yes, indeed. Strategies were very much a key part of that race, but that was an important race for you, Eric, as far as the championship's concerned, because Nicky Taylor struggled a bit tonight, it seemed. You were able to take the maximum points, a race win from pole position, and the fastest lap we think you got as well. So we'll get confirmation of this in a moment or two, but it might put you into the championship lead with 4 races to go. Obviously, that's going to feel good, but does that maybe give you a bit of extra confidence now going into the final couple of weeks?
Well, we'll see. I have some ballast too with that, I guess. So it will not be easy for sure. But yeah, I think this was an important round for in the championship for me.
Yeah, most definitely, and you're continuing this really consistent run that you've had all season, not finished out of the top 10 yet, your second victory. Best of luck for next week at Bikaniki. That's going to be an interesting track, isn't it? Certainly not one I've got much experience of. How much practice are you going to put in this week to learn it?
Yeah, I will need a few hours. I tried the track. It's really cool. So I think it's going to be great.
We're looking forward to it. Congratulations, Eric. Your second victory of the season here in the double points race at Spa. Well done.
Thank you, Andy.
Eric Axelsson, then the race winner. Now, Jack, he mentioned there that Josh Martin's strategy at the end of the race, he thinks, might have cost him a chance at the race win. Perhaps you can find out what Josh thought about that carefully thought-out tyre strategy.
Yeah, no, Josh, you've already spoiled it for us a little bit in the commentary box. I'm going to start off with embarrassing you. What was the strategy call at the end there? Did you have a bit of a Ferrari moment?
I also didn't realise I was on hards till about 8 minutes from the end, and my dad came upstairs and he was like, "Why are you on hards?" And I'm like, "I'm on hards."
I love that. So your dad
it all made so much sense because I felt like I just didn't have that much grip, and I thought maybe it's the fuel load, or Eric, because obviously Eric's so fast anyway. I thought maybe Eric's just got that extra bit of speed on me, and nope, I was on hards.
So is your dad watching the broadcast, and it was only when he saw that he thought, you know what, I'm going to go have a knock on your room?
Yeah, I'm guessing he's eating his dinner downstairs, watching the broadcast, and wondered why I was on hards, and yeah. But no, it was an awesome race. Like I said before, Eric's my favourite person to race this championship. He's just so fast, so consistent, so clean, and I was pushing so hard to try and catch up, but couldn't quite do it. I think we got close on the last lap. But yeah.
Well, that was my next question. You did get extremely close on the last lap. So close that I had to exhale a quite high-pitched noise because I thought at one point you had completely missed your braking zone and were going straight into the side of Eric Axelsson. Talk us through your heart rate going into that final chicane.
Well, I was determined to outbrake him, thinking he was going to brake a bit early to make sure he got round the chicane. He also broke late, and I had to swing to the outside so I didn't T-bone him. But it come down to that such a small margin, and when I'm thinking about it now, when I pitted, I think I come out right behind Reese, like in between Andy and Reese.
Yeah.
And that cost me 2 seconds, maybe a second, battling to get past Reese, and now I'm like excited going, I should have used the push to pass to get past Reese on the back straight, and then I would have been that little bit close to Eric, and I would have been that bit closer going into that last chicane. But what a race.
I was going to say, that's endurance racing for you, though, isn't it? I mean, even though it's only 40 minutes, it's constantly ifs and buts and should-haves and would-haves and all that sort of thing. I suppose, it's a prime example of why a lot of endurance teams actually pit to go into a clean air and not into a battle, because you do get held up. Well, congratulations, Josh, on the second place. It's been a good evening for you in terms of championship. We'll reveal all in a couple of minutes' time, but congrats on the podium.
Cheers. I might see if I can employ a Red Bull strategist for my IG next time.
I think it'd be worthwhile.
Good stuff, Josh. Thank you very much. Right then, third place in that race, and what a race it was for Andy Carroll. Andy, well done. A great qualifying effort, first of all. I want to touch upon that because you qualified on the front row, your best qualifying effort of the season, and we've seen a steady improvement in your pace as the season's gone on as well. Is there something in particular that just clicked this week?
Hey, in terms of qualifying, I got a bit lucky getting a toe from Josh on my best lap. I think that gave me 2 or 3 tenths. So yeah, kind of just pipped him to second. Thanks to him being sort of in that sort of 1 to 2 second gap ahead of me. So he gave me a good toe down all the straights, which I think probably just made enough of a difference.
And that, of course, gave you then some decent track position from which to attack for a good result in the race. Now, you had this different strategy, though. You were the only one to use the soft tyres, actually, at any point through the race. You started on the softs. Were you surprised that no one else went for that strategy, and how effective do you think it was?
From Monza, I didn't want to get caught up in, too many battles right at the start, and I was expecting it to be a little bit closer on those first couple of laps. And I didn't want to lose too much time, so I wanted to try and get out and stay out ahead. And then trying to come in early and then go out and try and do, as many clean laps as I could. Let's say, hoping that the guys in front would be holding each other up a bit, and I could kind of make up time that way. But it was a bit more spread out, I think. But yeah, I was quite happy when I sort of came round the hairpin and there was Josh coming out the pits right in front of me. That was quite, and then I think a couple laps later Eric was the same. So yeah, it was. Yeah, I think it was as good as I was going to get tonight. I mean, obviously Eric and Josh were both really, really quick, and I think they had sort of just had the edge on me in race pace. But I was really hoping that Josh would kind of put a bit more pressure on Eric in the last few laps and kind of they'd slow each other down a bit so I could get on their tail. But wasn't until that last couple of corners that he really got close enough to have a lunge at. But no, it was a great race, and I think it was good to get a podium for sure.
Your third podium finish of the season so far. I mean, you've had 2 second places, now a third place as well. Is it beyond the realms of possibility that we could be talking to Andy Carroll race winner before the end of the season?
Oh, I've never tried the next track, so I have no idea what to expect there. So I'm not. Yeah, at the moment I'm kind of not holding out much hope for that. But I'm guessing many of us will be in the same position. We probably might not have raced there before. So I think you've got Eric, you've got Nikki, Josh. I'm expecting Joel to come back with a vengeance in the last few races. So I think a race win will be really, really tough. But if I can grab another podium, I'll be very happy with that.
Certainly. I mean, it's been fantastic to watch you improving, not just this season, but actually over the last 2 or 3 seasons that I've been involved with you. It looks like you could well be on for your best championship results so far. So best of luck over those final couple of rounds, Andy, and great performance for another podium finish here tonight.
Thank you.
So Andy Carroll then in third position. Now, I'm glad Eric Axelson stuck around in the chat as well, because one thing I neglected to say to Eric earlier on is that we have had a bit of a discussion amongst our broadcast team about who should be the recipient of the Driver of the Round award. And we have, I think, Jack, arrived at a decision there, haven't we? And we're gonna give it to the Swedish assassin.
Yeah, absolutely. Eric was fairly dominant for the majority of that. Well, he was dominant for the entirety of the race, of course. He started on pole to life victory. You can never really underestimate how difficult that is, especially when you've got some really quick drivers in behind. So, Eric, if you are still there, congratulations on taking the Driver of the Round.
I'm here. Yeah, thank you. That feels great.
Good stuff. Well, it's fully well-deserved, and obviously we've got to have a look a little bit further forward towards our next couple of rounds of the calendar, Andy.
Indeed, because we are heading to a brand new circuit to me, certainly, in the next round. Bick and Nikki will be the host round for our next couple of races, and a circuit that I don't think I even realised existed, actually, until a few weeks ago when it popped up on the calendar. So that's going to be a real voyage into the unknown. You can see from the circuit layout, it looks like it's going to be a tight, technical, proper sort of Eastern European, Scandinavian style circuit where maybe overtaking is going to be tricky. So I think we could be in for some very close racing, might get a little bit too close on occasions. And then we head to something completely different, something far more familiar, certainly. The Silverstone Grand Prix circuit will round out the championship, and it does look like it's going to be another one of those VRRC final round deciders, perhaps between a number of different drivers. We might get a good little look, actually, at how that championship situation is going to be poised, because with 4 races to go, I think we can now have a look, once the drop scores have been applied, at what the situation is. And it is Eric Axelson who moves ahead of Nikki Taylor, by actually quite a chunk there. 210 points for Axelson, 193 for Nikki Taylor. So what's that, a 17-point advantage for the Swede, with Joel Lask then a little bit further back in third, but of course he has an extra 5 points actually to be taken off that, doesn't he? So he's down to about 183, with Kyle Felvers absent tonight, so his drop score now becomes a 0, and Josh Martin up into the top 5, but Dalton Ayres isn't that far back. Even Andy Carroll, Jack, inside that top 7 as well. There are lots of drivers who will feel that they can finish within certainly the top 5, maybe even top 3 this season.
yeah, obviously we don't know their personal calendars, but anybody who's got a holiday booked in August in those top 5s will probably be trying to frantically find a way of scoring some points on that particular evening. Whether, like Joel Lask did, just trying to get a substitution like his brother and then counting that as the drop score or something like that. It's going to be a little bit difficult for a few of them, but I'm hoping everybody turns up each and every week because, like you've mentioned a few times there, they are very, very close to each other. And you're absolutely right. If Andy Carroll carries on in that upwards trajectory that he seems to be taking, there's no reason why he can't crack into the top 5. But the problem is, who's he going to replace? You know, Elliot's doing well, Josh is doing well, Kyle Felbus will be scoring points when he's back, of course, as well. So it's going to be really interesting. And if we scroll a little bit further down, we can see the rest of the drivers who have joined us for this particular season. Obviously, Jordan Brennan only joining us for the one race. You never know, he might join us for one more, hopefully, because we always like to have Jordan Brennan on the grid. He always is a good driver to have right at the sharp end of the field. Right, yes. It's about that time that we probably have a look at, there we go, what's going on VRRC. Assetto Corsa, you've been watching the main championship tonight, of course, and you can join us every Wednesday to have a bit of a feature on that one. You can even join in on the racing if you've enjoyed what you're seeing. There's fun races on a Saturday and time attacks throughout the week as well. iRacing will be putting on some special events and fun races going forward. So anybody who's into iRacing maybe is a bit daunted by Assetto Corsa in a lot of ways. Then there's obviously opportunities here at VRRC for you as well. And Dirt Rally 2.0, we've got monthly stages run by Dave Marshall, our main driver coach here at VRRC. So make sure you click the links down in the description for all the websites and Discord as well, and someone will happily take you through all the information.
Absolutely, nicely done as always, Jack. So do be sure to head over to all of the VRRC social media pages for information on that, and also on where you can tune in for our penultimate round of the VRRC Touring Car Championship European Tour from Bikaniki. It's going to be a fascinating couple of races where the championship protagonists will be out to grab those last few crucial points that they need before they head into the final week at Silverstone. For now, though, from Spa, from myself, Andy McEwan, from Jack Oliphant, from Tom O'Farrell, and everyone else on the VRRC team, even, thank you very much for joining us tonight. We'll see you again in a week's time.
Woo!